evening, everyone. This is not a glitch in the matrix. It's not deja vu. I am, in fact, live streaming again after the stream of Boricuas contra Todo with Chago. Um, like I was saying in the live, and even off the air afterwards, I'm just super pumped right now to be illustrating. Hello, Diane. I hope you're doing well. It is a rare, relatively early draw screen for me. I'm usually doing this like around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and I virtually never live stream after already having done a live stream. But again, like seeing the whole crowdfunding thing, seeing like independent comics doing so well. Hi. Um, it just, it's one of those things that just makes me want to draw and keep illustrating and what have you. I think I hear a bit, yeah, I was hearing a bit of an echo. There we go. So, anyway, to give context to the title of this live stream, this art stream, um, a little while back during one of the YouTube shorts that I uploaded with my artwork, um, a follower. Well, I don't know if he's actually a subscriber or not. He's commented on quite a bit of my shorts over the past month. His name is, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Chris Beretis. He's been suggesting me to do a illustration of Samurai Jack versus Kattana. Kattana, of course, the DC Comics character from the Suicide Squad and whatnot. And I thought that was actually a pretty interesting combo right there, a pretty interesting thing to illustrate. So I just said, why not? And I decided to just kind of live stream starting that illustration at the very least and maybe expanding a little bit more on what we were talking on the live stream earlier of Rippaverse and having one of the biggest things ever really for comic books and crowdfunding. I'm just looking for, here we go. As you can see, I already started kind of like the structure of how I'm going to do the illustration. I have my trusty iPad mini here with reference shots of Kattana. Kattana is a character I have never illustrated before. Samurai Jack is a character I only sketched like once years ago. So I'm up to the challenge of doing characters that I've never really done before. So this should be kind of interesting for me. And as you can see, there's already other tabs open in Clip Studio Paint of pages for Fred Peterson, The Mighty Warlord, Truthful Comics Edition. Like, I want to continue illustrating that so badly also, but sometimes it's good to like take a small step back and do something that you usually don't do, at least in my case anyway, to kind of keep those creative juices flowing and not get like too bored doing just one thing. Because sometimes I'm the type of person that has to be doing like different kind of things to like keep my interest level up there. In the meantime, let me go ahead and put on some the more traditional background music for these kind of streams. Here we go, trusty lo-fi. Now it feels like it's all right. To anyone that doesn't know what I'm talking about this the launch of this comic book company called Rippaverse from a YouTuber named Young Rippa. His name is Eric Ulai, and he launched his own comic book line. He launched it yesterday. In 1 hour, he pretty much made the goal he wanted to achieve with the crowdfunding. In 1 hour alone, he had done $100,000. Right now, he's over $1 million. Let me actually check real quick. I think I still have the page up, actually, the one from the earlier live stream. It's almost at $1.5 million in less than 2 days. That is staggering numbers right there. That is absolutely insane. You know, like I said in the previous stream, ideologies apart, you know, looking at this objectively, like that is like a huge, huge haul, especially for someone that has never been involved in mainstream comics. Now, actually, let me just show the screen here so you guys can like see that. That is absolutely crazy. $1,409,712. I have to drink something because I'm gonna just get dehydrated looking at these numbers again. And that's with 15,295 backers. Like the original goal for the campaign was $100,000 in 75 days. He got the $100,000 within the first hour yesterday. That is just mind blowing. I honestly can't even fathom how huge that is. And again, ideologies aside, you have to give the guy props for being able to develop a game plan, stick for it for 2 years, and like just pretty much hit a grand slam out at his first at bat. And with a diverse character on top of it too. Like this is just absolutely nuts, man. And as I say, it's something that's pretty inspiring to me as a creator as well. Like it's not like I'm going to reach $1 million in a couple of days or anything like that, but it gives me that confidence of if you slowly build your audience and if you stick to your plan and be open minded enough to keep growing as you go as well. Like the sky's the limit. You know, and I'm not just saying this for myself, like this is for anybody that's doing your own indie comic that wants to reach a whole other level of exposing your creations to other people. Like this is just bonkers to me. And on top of that, Boom Studio released the Kickstarter for Irredeemable from Mark Wade, which is doing extremely well also. Like it may not look like it's doing well compared to Rippaverse because again, Eric Eli, at least to the best of my knowledge, hasn't been in mainstream comics. He's been a YouTuber for a long time. He's been building his audience little by little. Irredeemable, and already you can almost say legendary comic that came out already has a fan base. Mark Wade, what can you say about Mark Wade? He is one of the biggest writers of his generation. You just have to look at Flash, Impulse, Kingdom Come. Definitely one of the most influential writers I had when I started making comic books myself. Now that's at $140,000 and $140,065, which by any barometer, it is a very successful campaign to have that on its first day. But it's just mind blowing to see uh, how much of a juggernaut Rippaverse turned out to be. Like, I'm practically speechless, and I'm not kidding, you know. And once again, if you're a Spanish speaker, or maybe um, the automatic captions will do a decent job of translating or something. If you visit Chago Approved, my friend in doing these live streams on Wednesdays, let me look that up. There it is, Chago Approved. He goes over a lot of the things of kind of like what happened with this crowdfunding, in terms of kind of giving advice about the business aspect of comic book creating, you know, like the real world nitty gritty stuff that they don't talk about in art school or in animation school, or if you go to a school that specifies majors in comic book making as well. So once again, if you understand Spanish, or maybe the closed captions in English might do a decent enough job of, you know, giving you the overall gist of what topic he's talking about in the videos. But he talks about breaking down hourly rates of how much money you should be earning by the hour while you're creating your comic, doing a financial plan for your comic. Also, another video which is basically a toolkit for how to create your comics and whatnot. So definitely check that out when you have the time. It has been a crazy week in comics, that's for sure. Between Rippaverse and Irredeemable, it's like, what's next? I'm next. Fred Peterson, the Mighty Warlord, is going to be next, mark my words. And if Rippaverse ends up doing $3 million by the end of this campaign, I want Warlord to do $3 million on 1 cent. Not because I'm petty, but because I'm that competitive. At the end of the day, I want everyone to succeed, really. And I just want to, as I said, take a small break from working on my comic, Fred Pearson, the Mighty Warlord, and start this illustration that I said I was going to do to the commentator, Chris Baratis. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He has suggested me to do a pinup of Samurai Jack versus Kattana, the character from DC Comics. That's basically what I begun doing here. Just kind of like sketch out where everything goes. And then, of course, just ink over it afterwards. Right now, I'm just like thinking in the back of my head, like, what are some of my favorite Mark Waid stories? Of course, as I mentioned before, his Flash was just the quintessential reading for the 90s. He always used to joke around and say, well, probably not really joke around, but it was probably all true. But Mark Waid would go on to say that he was essentially Wally West in those in those Flash comics he was writing back then. I absolutely loved Mark Waid's run on Flash. There were so many great artists as well. Like Flash low key had one of the best artists of the time working there that they kind of got their big break in comics because of Flash. You think of Carlos Pacheco and Salvador La Roca, like they essentially started at the same time on Flash. They were like alternating issues, and then issue number 100, they both drew that issue. Issue 100 of Flash back then was one of my all-time favorite issues of any comic, hands down. You had Jesse Quick, you had Impulse. And of course, before Salvador La Roca and Carlos Pacheco, who would go on to have outstanding careers. Of course, Carlos Pacheco on Fantastic Four, like one of his big comics that he made afterwards, and of course, his first major run in Marvel Comics with X-Men. Then you had Salvador La Roca that pretty much filled in on a lot of comics. Like he did a lot of Ghost Rider stuff also after he did Flash. He eventually had a very nice run on X-Men, and I believe he was on Fantastic Four as well when Chris Claremont had taken over writing Fantastic Four at one point. And of course, before they were illustrating on Flash, the legendary Mike Wieringo was illustrating Flash. Rest in peace. Certainly an all-time great artist right there, Mike Wieringo. This is kind of like my first time ever illustrating. Thank you, Chago. Again, visit Chago Rodriguez YouTube channel, Chago Approved, to get more insight on what they don't talk about in school about creating comics or just anything creative in general in the creative field. too worried about getting stuff too perfect at this stage, of course. Just kind of laying down where everything kind of goes. And I have my iPad mini with the reference for Kattana. Like this is probably gonna be one of these illustrations where I'm not going to like finish it in one live stream. I'll probably be doing a couple of live streams throughout the rest of the week or the rest of the month to just kind of finish this one out. I have actually not watched the Suicide Squad movie, either one of them. I hear a lot of people prefer the James Gunn version, the sequel, compared to the original one. I haven't watched Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey either yet. But I suppose I will at some point. It's kind of based where the characters are going to be. Let me let me put up Samurai Jack. So again, Chris, if you're watching this, thank you for the suggestion. Hopefully, you'll be able to enjoy this interpretation that I'm doing. Like, I never got to finish Samurai Jack. Like, I watched the original animation. I didn't watch the final season that they did like a few years after the original run ended, which was kind of like the final battle and whatnot. I should seriously rewatch that. I've been kind of like on a nostalgic trip as of late, watching old animations and old shows, and rereading old comics as well. I don't know if to do Samurai Jack, keep it cartoony, or to like do it a little more serious looking, realistic looking compared to like Kattana. I'll cross that bridge, I guess, soon when I decide to flesh out the illustration more. I've always loved the design, I guess the overall aesthetic of Samurai Jack. I believe he was also the same the creator of Samurai Jack was either the creator of the Powerpuff Girls or Dexter's Lab, one or two, or maybe even both. I honestly don't remember, but I know he was also the creator of something else on Cartoon Network at the time. Like I'm doing the more cartoon version at the very least as a placeholder until I decide what exactly I'm going to do. Not too long ago, I actually got the first two seasons of the Superman animated series of the 90s. I don't remember how many seasons those were. I haven't finished watching them. And, it's looking a little bit stiff right now, but sometimes when I do the under sketch like this, it's a little bit more on the stiff side, and then when I do the actual proper illustration and inking, that's when the illustration gets a whole lot looser. The overly cartoony look is working for me, so I'll probably decide to do it a tad bit more realistic. I have never illustrated Kattana in my life. She seems like a pretty cool character, though. Like she looked impressive in the trailers that I've seen for Suicide Squad. I never really read Suicide Squad, so I'm not too familiar with the character, to be honest. For those of you wondering, I'm drinking a aloe vera drink. I've been trying to be more healthy this last month. I'm trying to also keep myself a lot more hydrated as the days are getting warmer and warmer and warmer over here. Hey, Ronaldo. Yes, I wish I could put Aerosmith music, but if YouTube doesn't take me down, Facebook will because of copyright. I was listening to Dream On earlier, actually. For those who don't know, Reynaldo Delgado and I went to the same college. Reynaldo, an outstanding illustrator in his own right as well. Super creative. What are you drawing today? It was a suggestion actually, JL, Speaking of another great artist, Hotaele Aviles with his comic Omega, super fun comic. Um, this person that's been commenting on my YouTube shorts over the past month, really, he suggested that I do a illustration of Samurai Jack versus Kattana from the Suicide Squad. Apparently, those are like two of his most favorite characters. His name is Chris Beratus or Beratus. I know I'm probably butchering his name one way or the other. He suggested that illustration, so I thought it would be fun to do it. I was going to just kind of do it and upload it as a short or whatever, but then I decided to do it as a live stream. But things got a bit complicated during the week, and I have at least an hour or so free right now. So I decided why not do it now? Because again, as I was saying, I feel super stoked after all the crowdfunding success of both Ripaverse and Irredeemable. Although it is debatable if Irredeemable is an independent comic or not, because Blue Studio has grown so much over the years. And of course, the names attached to Irredeemable are so big in the comic book industry, especially um, Mark Way. Thank you so much, Diane. Drawing samurais is very fun, actually. Like a character that I always have fun sketching is one of my all-time favorite animes and manga, Rurouni Kenshin. Copyright free music. Want me to send this on? I'll never say no to free anything, to be honest. Unless it's shellfish related, then I can't say yes to that because I'm allergic. But otherwise, that's why I put the lo-fi music in the background. It's like generic music that they have um, for default here on StreamYard that you can play in the background. And apparently, I believe I saw a message earlier that you can now upload your own background music to play while you're streaming, which is definitely something to consider later on as well. I mean, kind of like, I always go default to lo-fi because it does help things stay, as I say, chill. Maybe there's acoustic cinematic. It definitely sounds acoustic, but I don't know about cinematic. There's dance pop. Let's hear how that one sounds like when it loads. Thank you so much, Jensen. If your ears were twitching earlier, we were talking about your prompt also before as a good example of how other indie creators should be um, working on their creations as well. Dance pop is kind of fun. I kind of like it, but I feel like it will probably distract me too much from illustrating because then I'll just start like going night at the Roxbury on the screen. This one's Daydream. Not my cup of tea, I guess. so far? That sounds like something that you would probably play while you're doing those videos. I forgot what they're called when they're like soothing sounds or whatever. ASMR or something like that. ASMR video. I know it's not BDSM. Definitely not that one. Do you prefer Clip Studio over other painting programs? Honestly, for doing line art, I actually prefer Clip Studio. For doing coloring, I actually prefer Photoshop. Still, to be honest, I do a lot of coloring in Clip Studio only, but only because of convenience, to be honest. Because I had Photoshop installed on my Mac, but it was Photoshop CS2. So on the last update that happened like a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, one of the big updates that Apple did, a lot of legacy software stopped working. So Photoshop stopped working on my MacBook, but I still have Photoshop on my Asus Windows laptop. And in the beginning, I would kind of like do the line art on the Mac and then go on and finish it up on the other laptop. But I found that it was so time consuming because the Windows laptop is a pretty old laptop. It's like from 2013 or something like that. So it's pretty slow nowadays. So I just kind of just bit the bullet and just stayed coloring on Clip Studio Paint also. Like it's a bit of a learning curve to do the actual coloring on Clip Studio, but it's not too bad overall, to be honest. Like I kind of grew used to it, but I still kind of prefer Photoshop. And thank you, ASMR. That was going to be on my mind bugging me for a while, not knowing what it was. And I didn't want to say something that would make this channel get flagged or whatever, or have the stream taken down. Due to spicy content or something. Especially when I'm such an angel, like, see, this is my halo. I would never be caught saying indecent things on a live stream. I think I have before, though. I'm just kind of going back and forth between the reference images of Kattana and Samurai Jack. Kind of probably I'm going to end up changing a few things. Like I know there's some artwork also aside from this that I need to finish as well. But it's been a very hectic month this month. I haven't talked about it publicly. Like some people know, but I guess I'll just like give a context to everything that has happened. Last month, we actually ended up adopting a new cat. He's 1 year old. His name is Hunter Jr., but we just call him Hunter. No offense to Hunter Sr. was, but we just kind of got used to calling him just plain Hunter. And when we adopted him to kind of keep our elder cat, Luchito, who you have seen before in pictures and short videos, the 13-year-old tuxedo cat, we got the 1-year-old cat to kind of keep him company when we would go out and such, because he would get extremely sad when we would leave. And sometimes he would kind of throw tantrums when we would come back, because I guess he would have anxiety by being alone. And ever since he was a kitten, he never was alone. When my girlfriend's mother was helping raise him back in Puerto Rico, um, there was the other cat, Fiona, which a lot of you guys also saw. She was 14 years old, and she basically rose um, Luchito kind of like her own cat, like if he was her own kitten, so to speak. And they grew up in an environment where there were dogs as well. So he was Luchito was never alone. I don't know if the internet is kind of acting a bit weird again to me. But yeah, the poor cat went from a situation where he had Fiona moved from Puerto Rico to New York, adapting to a new environment, and not too long after adapting to a new environment, Fiona, the older cat, passes away. So all of a sudden, he was alone in that sense for the first time in his life, really. So we ended up, getting another cat to keep him company. And little did we know that Hunter actually had an upper respiratory infection. So we took him to the vet, we gave him his medication and whatnot. He's still essentially a kitten just going into adulthood, at 1 year old. So his immune system kicked in pretty fast, and it wasn't too bad for him aside from just having like sniffles and sneezing. But it didn't get any worse than that for him. And we did not know that upper respiratory infections are actually very contagious between cats. It's not contagious from like cats to humans or to even like other animals, but between cats themselves, it's actually very infectious. It's like when humans have the flu. If we sneeze on someone or in the vicinity of someone, there's that risk of getting the flu and getting sick as well. And since those symptoms developed around the time that we were starting to introduce the two cats, our elder cat got sick as well. But since he's 13 years old, it hit the poor guy a lot worse than it did to Hunter. And actually, we were lucky because after Hunter had gone through his infection and was pretty much already out of the woods, that's when I started to notice that Puchito, our older cat, was starting to sneeze a lot more than usual and wasn't like his usual self. Like he's a very chill cat, but was going to the point where he was just oversleeping, not starting to not eat. So just to be on the safe side, I took him to the vet. The day after I started to notice kind of those similar symptoms. As it turns out, he did in fact get the upper respiratory infection as well. But again, since he is an older cat, he was already starting to develop asthma in his lung. And that could have turned into pneumonia, which would have been almost fatal for him. So thankfully, we took him just in time as it was beginning to the vet. And it was like a few weeks of sleepless nights, just giving him his medication, making sure that he's eating. Like they actually gave us a huge ass syringe so we could force feed him wet food because he didn't want to eat at all. Luckily, he was drinking water throughout the whole ordeal, but he was not eating at all. He was actually starting to lose quite a bit of weight. And the crazy thing is that he is an eater. Like, it's like I always joke around. He's not a very bright cat, but when it comes to food, he is MacGyver. He will find a way to find food and eat it. Luckily, not human food, but the cat food, and especially treats, forget about it. that was pretty much the reason that a couple of weeks ago I went the entire week without live streaming, including Boricuas Contra Todo, because I wasn't that whole process of taking the cats to the vets, giving them medications, really not sleeping at all, like keeping an eye on them, especially since we went through the ordeal of the other cat that had passed away in October, Fiona. I don't know, you kind of like get that small scare in you that something might happen, even if it's almost irrational, that fear that something is going to happen. Like I guess it's more like if you have a pet, you'll probably understand a little more what I'm talking about. Especially if you grew up with pets. Like I grew up with pets. Like when I was a kid in New York, I grew up having a hamster called Tiger and a German Shepherd called Lobo. No relation to Lobo, the alien from DC Comics. That was just the name that was given to the puppy when it was given to my father. He was a German Shepherd. He kind of looked like a wolf. And then in Puerto Rico, we did have a couple of cats as well. So, I did grow up with that environment of being surrounded by pets as well. And the pets becoming essentially a part of the family. Yeah, me too. Like, I remember even as an adult, I've had hamsters in Puerto Rico. I had these two hamsters that I was reassured by the pet shop owner that they were both male, that they were just, male brothers. It wasn't the case. One of them was actually female. And before we knew it, there was like this whole litter of hamsters. And at the time, I was in my former relationship back then in Puerto Rico. When we ended up moving in together, we didn't get to take the hamsters with us. We kind of left them with my mom, so she wouldn't really be like too alone or something. And unfortunately, they just kind of like, eventually passed away little by little, due to their lifespan not being that much. And my mom, like, always said that, once they would pass away, she was not going to like get another pet. But of course, eventually she got a bunch of cats anyway. So, well, not really that she got a bunch of cats. When I was already living back in New York again, she started feeding a stray cat that would appear sometimes on the doorstep. And there was actually a female cat, so eventually that cat gave birth to kittens close to the house, and she would take the kittens also to my mom for food. So she actually ended up feeding a couple of generations of cats. And I don't want to like talk about how much everything came out to, because I don't like to like discuss private matters of that kind in public like that. But all I can say, if people think healthcare for humans is insane, try having a pet. Especially when it gets pretty sick. But at the end of the day, we just wanted him to get better, and thankfully, he's doing a lot better over the last couple of days. Of course, he regained his appetite. Like he's regained his appetite with a vengeance. I feel like he's eating now to make up for the time that he didn't eat. Um, he's being more himself. He's jumping onto his favorite, onto his favorite furniture, jumping into bed to sleep with us as well. He's been getting along great with the other cat too. Like in the beginning, they were kind of social distancing from each other. They never fought, which was a good sign. We introduced them slowly. And yesterday, actually, for the first time, we caught the older cat actually grooming the younger cat, like licking him and such. So at the very least, they're getting along great. And since Hunter already went through the infection and got through the medication, the vet also reassured me that he wouldn't like get sick again by being close to the older cat that has the infection. So the infection should technically have run its course tomorrow on our older cat. And already he's been walking around, like he's been acting a lot more like normal over the last couple of days. Of course, I had to sacrifice a convention appearance I was actually going to do over this weekend. But again, they become family, and I just couldn't let them go through that illness, and not let my girlfriend do it alone by herself as well. Sick animals is always really hard on one's emotional side. I've had chickens been on a borderline vegetable state up to 5 days before they even respond. All those days you can't work straight because of it. Oh yeah, I hear you. Like I've said, like that week where it was like really hot, I didn't even live stream at all. I didn't even update short videos to YouTube or TikTok or anything. I really didn't illustrate much at all because you're just kind of like double checking that he's fine. You go from a cat that, even though he's a chill cat, like he would jump on top of me to alert me when it was breakfast time or when he would want a treat or something. And to go to a cat that was like trying to like hide in corners, not socialize with any of us. He was wheezing really loud. Like sometimes it sounded like it was like a grown person trying to breathe. That's how loud you could hear him wheezing. So we were very fortunate that we took him to the vet just as I started noticing those symptoms in him, because that could have developed into pneumonia, and we wouldn't know if we would have lost him if he got pneumonia at that age, because he is 13, he'll be 14 in October. Like I haven't had to go through having pets being put to sleep. Like having pets, that's probably like my biggest fear. Like having a pet that eventually will have to be put to sleep or something. Like the only like pets that I've had that I've actually seen die, aside from Fiona, like I said, the older cat that was essentially our cat's surrogate mother. She was very sick, and we were going to take her to the vet that day. And the morning, she had cuddled up to my feet, like she would a lot of the times would do. She would like cuddle up to my feet and go to sleep, and that's how she passed away. She cuddled up to my feet, and she was gone. And the only other pet that I've had that I saw dead was oddly enough when I was like maybe 10 years old. This was the second hamster that I ever had, and this was actually a pretty gruesome death. Like it's the most gruesome pet death I've seen. Um, my mom, she put the hamsters in an aquarium, actually, in a glass aquarium that used to belong to some fish that we used to have. And one time, and actually, it wasn't even my hamster; it was my sister's hamster. One time when we put the hamsters in another place while she was cleaning the aquarium, she accidentally dropped it, and the bottom of the aquarium cracked. And it cracked in a way where one shard of glass didn't like break off completely, but it kind of spiked up a little. And oh my god, why am I even telling this story? My mom, she thought that since they were hamsters, they weren't going to be very curious. And also, since hamster like cages, like the litter that's put in it, like she just put litter on top of the cracked glass. Then she put like aluminum, like one of those aluminum trays that you use to bake things. Like she just flattened that and put that on top of that litter, and then she put even more litter on top of that, because in her mind that would flatten things out in the bottom. And besides, a hamster would not dig that deep. Wrong. Absolutely wrong. Because one morning we woke up and we noticed there was only one hamster in the aquarium, my hamster. And we were all going nuts looking all over the apartment because my first hamster actually escaped the cage where we had him in. The cage didn't have like a ceiling for some reason at that point, and somehow he managed to make a small mountain with the litter and was apparently able to jump over the cage and just run out. And we were living in a rat infested apartment back then in Williamsburg. So we thought that maybe somehow my sister's hamster did something similar and escaped. So we were all just kind of looking around. And then my mom just kind of looks at the aquarium and like starts thinking to herself like, no, that hamster could not have dug itself out of the aquarium from underneath it. So again, she takes my hamster, puts it somewhere else, starts taking off all the piles of litter and the aluminum pan. And once she lifted the aluminum pan, she saw the body of the hamster there. The hamster had, in fact, dug through the first bit of litter, went around the aluminum pan, kept digging, and impaled itself through its forehead, through that shard that my mom thought was going to be completely flattened out because all the stuff that she had put on top of it. It's still kind of unbelievable. It sounds even more unbelievable saying all this out loud. I don't think I've even ever told this story to anyone. But now it's out there for the internet to see. And since my mom didn't like react quickly because she was just shocked at that discovery, she just kind of like went like, oh, when she saw the hamster, So of course I overheard her and I ran and looked into the aquarium and saw the whole gruesome thing. My sister was kind of like meh because she never really cared hamsters, to be honest. She would just mostly say that they were just rats, really. Oh wow, that's really sad. Yeah, that's definitely bad. Yeah, ants can be savage. Like I remember in Puerto Rico, in my bedroom, in the summers when it would rain. One of those rare times in the summer when it would like rain a lot. There was like this ant colony that would, we lived in the second floor of the house, and somehow that ant colony would go all the way up the wall from the outside and would just go into my bed and always settle in my bed. There's times that I had to like sleep for days on the sofa until the ants would get exterminated in my bedroom. It's not like I had food or anything lying around in my bedroom. Like it was a bit messy, mostly because of clothes and video games and toys and whatnot. But I didn't really eat much in my bedroom. We usually ate as a family when we would eat, like whether it's breakfast or dinner, lunch, or what have you. Like I would have the occasional snack, of course, but nothing that would merit an entire ant colony climbing up the walls and nesting in my bed. Most action my bed back then ever saw. And I would always find out because it would always start with like a small sting on one arm. And me thinking it's just probably a mosquito or something. And then I'll feel another sting on the leg. Then another one on my arm, which would end up making me wake up and then see like a bunch of ants on my bed. It would be like, oh, it's that time again. I don't even remember what this game was about anymore. But those are the fun kind of streams, though. But then again, like, and oddly enough, this still actually stuck with me. Like, the absolute, in my mind at least, most gruesome pet death that I saw involved fish. I don't recall what kind of fish they were. I think they were goldfish. There was this store called McCrory's, I believe, in Brooklyn, and it was like 3 stories. Now it's like, I believe it's like one of those cookies store. Not cookies that they sell actual cookies, but cookies as in the children's clothes department or something like that. Clothing store. Back then it was like a store called McCrory's, if I'm not mistaken, and they would sell a lot of different things. They would sell like men's clothes, women's clothes, children's clothes, toys, athletic apparel, sports equipment. They even had like a small diner inside as well. But in the bottom, in the basement, was actually a pretty sizable pet store. And I always used to enjoy running to the aquariums to see the fish. And there was this one time that I saw this one fish swimming with his tail going away from me. And then another bigger fish swimming towards me in direction of that smaller fish. And all I remember is seeing the bigger fish open its mouth wide, close it, and then swim, towards a different direction. And then the smaller fish, it was still just like there with its tail behind me. And then slowly, I guess because of the waves in the water of the other fish around, that smaller fish started turning around. And to my horror, when that fish finished turning around, the fish had no head. The bigger fish had quite literally bitten the smaller fish's head off in front of me. I have a pet fish for like 2 years after I saw that. Try being a parent and explain to your kid why a fish bit the head off of another fish. I'm starting to think it's true. 80s kids are the way they are right now. Generation X is the way it is right now because of all the shit that we saw when we were kids and that we had to endure. Silence of the Nemos instead of labs. Now that is actually a mini comic waiting to happen. I ate his head with a nice side of seaweed. Well, hello, Terry. It gives a different new spin on Finding Dory, doesn't it? Now that's a movie I would watch. No lie. I think this thing really would deserve to be struck down for inappropriate content. This is probably the worst live stream ever. But it's still fun though. It's already 10 o'clock. I'm going to call it a stream for now. If I'm not asleep or if I'm not too busy, I'll probably live stream something else around the usual witching hour, as I call it. Have some alcohol instead. I haven't had like a drink and draw in ages. I can already hear some of the cat bills roaming around. It's kind of like supper time for them, so I'll continue this later, or if anything, I'll post tomorrow or whenever I finish this one, to finish a lot of other stuff as well. But at the very least, for you, Chris, I started this one already at least. At the very least, like the bare bones of it is there and it's taking shape. Again, just out of curiosity, I want to check how those crowdfundings are going. Let's go ahead and check Rippleverse as some number one. Let me go ahead and refresh this. Wow, and just a little from 1,009,000. Taking his usual that's behind when I'm going to stop more food or That's time to be an independent creator. And this one as well. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Maybe like double check. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not. Maybe like double check. Okay, yeah. Like the audio's still there. Like the internet's been kind of wonky today. Anyway, yeah, it's just an exciting time to be an indie comic book creator. When you see these kind of things happen. Again, I wasn't even going to live stream so fast after having finished the live stream a few hours ago with Chavo. But again, it's just like something that just kind of inspires you and motivates you to keep creating and doing things. So later on, I'll probably be streaming, working on some more Lord things. Because this really comes on my comic as well. In any case, thank you guys so much for hanging around with me for this hour and change. Um, I hope I didn't freak anyone out too bad with all these kind of like goosebump pet stories or whatever. Uh, this was almost like the little pet shop of horrors power or something, and that was the crypt keeper. Only that was like the pet version, the caretaker version of the crypt keeper. You've always been the caretaker, Mr. Torrance. Oh god. I think I'm gonna stop it at the shining and just bid adieu to all of you. See you guys soon. Thank you for hanging around, and like always, stay creative.